Good morning, everybody. The Global Compact for Migration was signed a few days ago in Marrakesh. Here's the House of Commons petition. You can sign the petition at the top or sign it at the bottom, see how many signatures we've got. And don't forget to click the link in the email they send you, or your signature won't count. Join the conversation as well. We'd love to have you. It's a private forum, so you have to register to read and register to comment. But we're growing, and we'd love to have you. Today's story is about the Century Initiative, and I'd heard the number 100,000 Canadians by 2100 around, but I didn't know where to reference it, and somebody commented on my video yesterday, and here it is. So I wanted to show you and highlight this because it's very interesting. Please go and check out the link. It's in the description. You can watch this propaganda-laden video, but I'll read you the important parts for right now. Their vision, a competitive global nation of 100 million Canadians unified by diversity and prosperity. A brief history of the Century Initiative. The Century Initiative was started by a group of prominent Canadians concerned about the Canada we will leave to the next generation. After extensive issue mapping and discussion of the potential for positive impact, it was decided that the Century Initiative will focus on responsibly growing the population of Canada to 100 million by 2100. This will significantly impact our economic strength at home and our influence abroad. The country we will leave to the next generation risks becoming far less prosperous and far less relevant on the world stage. Canada is on track for 53% decline in annual real GDP growth. Canada's population base is currently forecast to be 53 million in the year 2100. This places Canada outside of the top 45 countries, behind Madagascar and another one that I'm not going to try and pronounce. Interested in prosperity, growth, and pluralism, and motivated to reverse these trends, the group established the Century Initiative. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, who's the group? Who are these people? So here are the founders. And I got to Dominic Barton. There are other examples of interesting quotes and interesting people on this, but we're just going to focus on Mr. Barton. Mr. Barton is the chair of the Canadian Minister of Finance's Advisory Council on Economic Growth. Okay, so I thought, well, what's that? Here's the Advisory Council on Economic Growth. The government of Canada believes that when you have an economy that works for the middle class, you have a country that works for everyone. The Minister of Finance established the Advisory Council on Economic Growth in March 2016 to develop advice on concrete policy actions to help create conditions for strong and sustained long-term growth. Economic growth, sorry. And the role of the Advisory Council on Economic Growth, the Council's advice will help to inform the government's future actions and policies. So Mr. Barton, who started the Century Club, whose goal is to have 100 million Canadians as the population by 2100, is giving actionable advice to the Canadian government on economic growth. So, and here's the openparliament.ca. Here's Mr. Dominic Barton, and it says Chair Advisory Council of Economic Growth at the Finance Committee. And this is a letter that he's written, but that's not the point here. I just wanted to show there are multiple sources talking about Mr. Barton's involvement with and chairing of that particular committee. Here's a related story. Quebec confirms plan to reduce immigration by about 20%. And, well, that's all you really need to know about that. The link is in the description, and it's a December 4th, 2018 story. And here's the Century Club tweeting on that. Will Justin Trudeau stand up to Quebec on immigration? So, and it's quite interesting that through this charity, because here's the Century Club's Twitter description. It says, a charity working towards an inclusive, influential, and prosperous future for Canada. A bigger Canada benefits us all. And so it's interesting that somebody who's giving, I mean, it's obviously the Century Club, right? It's not Mr. Barton directly, but it's interesting that the charity that he's directly involved in, and if you're founding a charity, presumably you're interested in the choices and actions it's taking. I would imagine Mr. Barton follows the charity on his Twitter if he does. So it's, interesting. This is the direction of the advice being given to advisory councils on economic growth. So that's concerning. To give you an idea of a couple of things, well, I want to show you how we've grown in the past and tell you why politicians have no will to stimulate a baby boom. Babies take 18 years to start paying taxes, right? And so it's much, much better to just wholesale import a population to replace the retiring population than spend all the money on growing up the home, the natural born Canadian babies, right? So in 1980, the population was 24.52 million. In 1990, 27.69 million. 2000, 30.69 million. 2010, 34.1 million. And 2017, 36.71 million. And by 2100, by 2020, between 2017 and 2020, they want to bring in 1 million more immigrants. And the structure of that is 300,000. Well, it's laid out here. Hold on, I'll find it. So Canada is planning to welcome nearly 1 million immigrants by 2020, according to the multi-year strategy tabled by the Liberal government. According to the CBC, it has been labeled, quote, the most ambitious immigration level in recent history. According to this plan, the number of economic migrants, family reunifications, and refugees will go up to 310,000 in 2018, which is an increase from 300,000 this year. This number is expected to rise to 330 in 2019 and then 340 in 2020. And we're going to come back to this article in just a minute, but I want to show you this. I've seen this number floating around as the number that the UN wants Canada to take by 2020. And I haven't been able to verify that, but the math of it is the 300,000 plus 310,000 plus 330,000 and 340,000 all told, those three right there all told is almost 1 million. So that's the Canada bringing in 1 million before 2020, right? And then 340,000 times 10, that's 2020 numbers. And if nothing changes for 10 years, that is about 3.4 million. So all told, it's about 4.3 million. So I couldn't get to that number, but that's the number being batted around. So Mr. Tufts, if you're watching, I'd love a link to that direct number right there. I can't get there, and I couldn't see how to. But even that number seems to be a lot, because that's not all the growth, right? It's a good chunk of it. It's about 70% of it year over year, but it is not all the growth. We would have another 30% of natural born Canadian babies, or 28% or something like that. But I thought that was interesting to point out. Okay, back to this article here. Immigration Minister Ahmed Hassan says the new targets will bring Canada's immigration to nearly 1% of the population by 2020, which will help offset an aging demographic. He called it a historic and responsible plan and the most ambitious in recent history. The targets for economic migrants, refugees, and family members were tabled in the House of Commons Wednesday afternoon. Quote, our government believes that newcomers play a vital role in our society, Hassan said. 5 million Canadians are set to retire by 2035, and we have fewer people working to support seniors and retirees. So, I mean, it's plain as day that the only way Canada's economy can survive, because the politicians have snookered us, and if you don't play snooker, you're behind the playable area. You can't play anyway. They've messed us up so much with our birth rate being so low and no stimulus to increase it, and by delaying and making older the birthing population of natural-born Canadians, they have created a situation where we're going to have a population crash before we can either we continue bringing in immigrants at these rates to maintain the growth that our economy depends on, or we go through a painful period of crash and population, like a slow population correction, I suppose. But neither is a very good option. Like, really, neither is a very good option at all. It's wild. So that's the meat and potatoes of today's video. I had a video last night that I was doing that was just didn't come together, but a couple of things I wanted to mention. This Grewal thing. And so here's the link to the tweet, and it says, emails contradict MP's claims about when he was given confidential report on multi-million-dollar land deal via National Post. Okay, so the National Post is talking about this, and the article is very interesting. I'm not going to go into it today because I don't have time. I'm going on a small vacation, so I'm going to be gone overnight, so I don't think I'll be doing another video today, and my video tomorrow will be late, so sorry, and I might not do one, but I'm hopefully going to do one because there's so much going on. I missed yesterday's second video, and I feel like I'm way behind. But anyway, this is a big deal. Mr. Grewal has been removed from the Liberal caucus, so they know that they can't protect him, regardless of claiming the mental health protection. He wasn't claiming protection, but he was saying, this is an addiction and this is a problem and it's all sorted out and I've given the money back, etc. There are far too many unanswered questions, and land deals and privileged information that potentially took or potentially gave investors an inside edge, and everybody is categorically denying it. He's saying I didn't do anything improper with it. Mr. Baines is saying no, there's nothing improper. But this is a bombshell. This is a huge, huge story. And in an election year, it is a headache for the Liberals because he was a Liberal MP the whole time. So this is the bridge fiasco, land deal. And so aside from the money laundering, aside from the RCMP, well, it's now being investigated by the RCMP. The Brampton City Council forwarded their investigation to the RCMP. But this is a huge story. Like, it's massive. I could do a video just on this. And I did have a video just on this. But it just wasn't quite there. And now there's more information. So maybe I'll come back to do a video on this and really, really dig into it. It's interesting. The other piece of this is our deficits, and this was an October article, but it said, quote, running deficits twice the size as promised with no plan to return to balance and no sign that spending is being reined in is a recipe for future disaster. And yesterday, Mr. Polievre tweeted, breaking, Trudeau promised a balanced budget by next year, just off the phone with the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Office, which today projects it could balloon to almost $30 billion a year. What? So that is much more than the tiny little deficits. Remember Mr. Harper's tiny little deficits? And while this is a terrible story, Michael Rafferty should be in max security, and apparently he was transferred to medium security as well. And man, I couldn't imagine what Rodney Stafford is going through. Like, that poor man. I feel for you, sir. I couldn't imagine having to continue to fight for justice for your daughter after the awful, awful treatment to you that the government did with the treatment of Tori's killer. And then this with the other one. Just incredible. It would be like having Paul Bernardo, moved from his max security and into Gen Pop. I mean, if he wasn't so well known, maybe they would try that too, just to outrage everybody. What an absolute failure of a government. And yes, Miss Bergen, Miss Bergen, play us out.
Are expressing buyer's remorse when it comes to this Prime Minister. It's hard to believe he could fit so much failure into just 12 months alone. He's failed to move even an ounce of dirt to build a single inch of pipeline. He's failed to fix the illegal border crisis. He's failed to get a better NAFTA deal. He's failed to remove steel and aluminum tariffs. He's failed victims of horrific crime like Tori Stafford and Catherine Campbell. He's failed to support our veterans. He's failed to equip our military. He's failed to defend our industry. And of course, yet again, the budget has failed to balance itself. Yes, Mr. Speaker, 2018 was the Prime Minister's year of failure, but there is hope. 2019 can be a year of redemption where Canadians will do away with this failed Liberal government and replace it with a brand new Conservative one. And for most Canadians, 2019 just can't come soon enough.